Hello everyone, this is Norm Jones of Brigham Young University, and for this video we are going to do part 2 of the controls, introduction to controls exercise. And the objective of this part of the exercise is to learn how to use option buttons. Now, option buttons are ActiveX controls that you can use to allow the user of your spreadsheet to make a selection from one of several choices in a very simple and intuitive fashion. And so for our exercise, we are going to create 3 option buttons, one labeled red, one green, and one blue. And when the user selects one of those colors, we are going to write a message to cell B16 right here saying whether the light is red, green, or blue. So just kind of a trivial little feedback to illustrate how these buttons work and how you can get feedback from them and use them to control inputs on different parts of your spreadsheet. So to start out, we are going to go over to the Developer tab once again. And we're going to go to, in the Controls section of the Developer ribbon, we are going to again go down to the ActiveX Controls section. And in the second row, in the second column, it says Option Button. So we'll click on that, and then we'll go over here just to the right of where our cell is, and we'll drag out a rectangle. And it says option button 1. It gives it once again a default caption. Then I'm going to do Control D to make a copy of that. Control D duplicates a selected option, or you can selected button, or we could do copy and paste, but I kind of like to just hold down the Control key and select D, so Control D. Oops, let's try that again. There we go. And now we have 3 buttons. Now I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select each of these buttons just to show you something. Once you create a set of controls, some of the interaction associated with this can be managed through the drawing tools that we normally use for just annotation on Microsoft Office documents. So I can go over here now and say align left, and then I can say distribute vertically, and now they are perfectly spaced and aligned. And so if you happen to be kind of OCD about those kinds of things, that's a pretty easy thing to do. Now once again, excuse me, once we create these controls, the next thing we need to do is edit their properties, and so I'll turn on the properties dialog, and we're going to select option button 1. And first thing we want to do is generally when you create a control, you want to change its name and its caption. So we're going to change this one to OPT red, lowercase OPT RED. And again, as you learned in the reading, it's good practice to give a 3-character prefix to each of your control names so that when you encounter it in your code, you can determine the kind of control it is and its function. So instead of option button 1, now we have OPT red, and we're going to change its caption to red light. Then I'm going to select the next one, and by the same token, I'm going to type OPT green. Change the caption to green light, and then finally we'll go OPT blue and change the caption to blue light. Alright, so now we have our controls, and I'm done with the properties window for a second. We are ready to write some code that links when you select on one of these controls or click on one of these controls, it will change the message displayed over here in cell B16. So to do that, make sure you're still in design mode, and double click on the red light button, and that pops us over into the Visual Basic Editor. It it opens up, it creates a new sub, OPT red click. So this sub is associated with the click event for the OPT red control. In other words, when the user clicks on that control, whatever we type here for code will be executed. And so what we want to do, let me go back and note what cell, this is cell B16. And so I'm going to say range B16 equals the light is red. So what I'm doing here is an assignment statement. Basically it says I'm taking a string constant, the light is red, and going to be assigning that to cell B16, so storing that in cell B16. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other two controls, but to save myself a little typing, I'm going to move my cursor right here and then click to select the entire line of code. And then I'm going to do Control C to copy that to the clipboard. And I'll go back and I'll double click on the green light control and I'll do Control V to paste from the clipboard. And then I'm going to change that to green. So copying and pasting is a good thing to do when you're a programmer. It saves you having to retype a bunch of stuff. And now I'll double click on the blue control and then go in and just change that to blue. So now we should be ready to go. I'm going to save my changes, exit design mode, and check it out. When we click on each of these controls, the message that we coded in there is properly displayed in cell B16. So that's how you create option controls, and that's how you can use them to direct input or automate input to certain cells. You can do other things as well, but that's one way to use it. Now, part B of this second section here on option controls says record 3 macros named red light, green light, and blue light. And let's see, I need to fix a typo there. To change the fill color on the results cell, link the macros to the 3 option controls. So what we want to do now is we want to make it so when you click on the red light option, this cell is filled in red in addition to the text changing. When you click on the green light button, the cell is filled with green. When you click on the blue light button, it's filled with blue. Now, we could go about doing that by looking up the Visual Basic code that you use to change the background color for a cell, and that would work, but there's an easier way to do that. We've learned how to record macros, and this is a classic case where rather than doing some digging and Googling and figuring out how to change the background color, we're just going to record 3 simple macros and then just call the macros when the user clicks on these cells. So to start with, we are going to click on some cell other than this cell in question. And the reason we do that is when the user runs this code, we don't want to or we want to make sure it doesn't matter what cell is selected. But if we record the macro with that cell selected, then when we go to run the macro, it would color whatever cell selected. So we want to make sure a different cell is selected. And then in the Developer tab, we'll go up here and select Record Macro. I'm going to call that red light and click OK. And then I'm going to go to the Home tab. I'm going to select that cell, change the background color to red, go back to the Developer tab and select Stop Recording. And then likewise, I'll just pick a different cell, record macro, call this green underscore light, click OK. Highlight the cell, jump to the Home tab, change the background color to green, and then stop recording. And then finally, Let's do a third macro. Call this blue underscore light. We will highlight that cell, go to the Home tab, change the color to this nice shade of blue, and stop recording. So, now what? Now we jump over to the editor, and if we look in the Project Explorer, double click on Module 1, you will see the code associated with those 3 macros that we recorded. And you could, again, we could have looked up and figured out how to write this code from scratch, but it's easier just to record it. And now we have a couple of options for the red light. Theoretically, we could select this code, copy it to the clipboard, and paste it here in the red light sub right after the text that sets the B16 to say the light is red. But there's an easier option. One of the whole points of recording a macro is then you can then later execute that macro using Visual Basic Code simply by typing in the name of the macro. So right here we're going to say red underscore light, and then up here we'll say green underscore light and blue underscore light. So again, I'm simply adding a second line of code to each of these 3 subs, which calls the corresponding macro to change that fill color on that cell to the color associated with that button. It's just as simple as that, and that should work for us. So let's go back here and again save our changes and make sure we're out of design mode, which we are. And now we'll just say red light, green light, blue light, and as you can see, not only does it change the text, but it changes the background color as well. So that completes the second part of this exercise.